the economy. We're having in-depth discussion on that and much more of what is happening in the dailies this morning with Dennis Kimani, chairman of the Youth Green CEO or chairman. I think I could be wrong or actually be right on both accounts, chairman and CEO, but he'll be here to tell us more on what these developments are looking like. Plus, illegalities. The question we're asking this morning when I came into the show is, who is rogue and who is not? Who is unconstitutional and who isn't? And actually, who cares? I'll be right back. Kenya car buyers hit by 35% import duty in the new EAC deal. The Finance Act of 2023 is already in effect. If you're at a fueling station, tell us, what is a litre of petrol retailing at wherever you are? In environs of Nairobi, 1 litre goes for 195, even with the court orders which are freezing the implementation of some sections of the Finance Act. And this is according to a petition filed by the Senator of Busia County, Okia Omtata. Something else that's happening also, CASs, 50 of them unconstitutional, and the High Court yesterday declared President William Ruto's appointments to be unconstitutional in a decision that now the state must be forced to either restart this process or drop them altogether. Let's hear from a man like Dennis on what he thinks about the headlines, and also tell us what is happening there on the Daily Nation, which is the paper you have.
Thank you. I'm so always grateful to be at KUTV. My name is Kimani Dennis, Chairman, Youth Green Society.
Not CEO?
CEO is when you are doing business, like Business Tuesday, like we are in KUTV today.
Right.
Yes.
So CEO,
yes.
Welcome back to the show, man. How has it been?
It's been great. We are grateful for everything that we are alive today. And kicking.
Right, and that's the spirit of every single Kenyan, regardless of what is happening. Somehow we are grateful, and we feel like we are still, we are still doing well. What does the headline say there on the Daily Nation, so that we get to see what are the stories we put priority on?
The Daily Nation, the headlines is High Court threw out Ruto's 50 cases. Yes.
Cases.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to call it. It's CASs or it's a CAS?
It's a CAS already.
Onto the Republic. Why do you think the court had to, of course, they are unconstitutional, and however, during President Uhuru Kenyatta's time, we had 41 CASs, and the sentiment from some of those who have been nominated, and people like Moura, the nominated CAS, who was previously a member of parliament in Kiambu County, and also nominated senator, he feels like this is a rogue judicial system which is raining heavily on President Ruto and was blind during President Uhuru's time. Why do you think the courts had to throw this out this time?
Thank you for the opportunity, Richard. For the case, it is unconstitutional, because even when they were appointed, it didn't take even the time it's supposed to go to Parliament for them to be called to State House. So the whole process was unconstitutional. But for the judiciary, we know that I think what this government is doing is that they know that after you take any case to the court, at the High Court, you have to appeal. So Kenyans will get tired and say, wachana tu now. Because already after the appeal, there's the Supreme, you see. So
you think you feel like somehow along the way they will get their reprieve and be back in office?
Yes, this is going to be appealed in the court.
The Court of Appeal, yes. Also maybe next up
to the Supreme.
Yeah, all right.
So this is not the end, this is the beginning. So Kenyans should know that when they are putting their vote, they should know what they are calling for. So this is not something we have seen. Even with the Uhuru we saw, but we saw that.
So there's no cause of celebration that eventually we might have these 50 CSs dropped and have that wage drip reduced.
No one is going to be dropped. Because when you see at the cases, these are people who the president is looking upon for the 2027 election. Most of them are political losers. So he is just awarding political losers so that they can be on his side. There are no technocrats here. We cannot say that these are people who are coming from business or anywhere else. These are people from the political field.
Right, and actually those who are appointed to these positions include former Governor Evans Kidoro, who has a record of court cases that involve one way or another disappearance of money here and there, whether it's parastatals or if it's county government. We have Samuel Tanu, former MPs like Isaac Maura, Millicent Omanga, and Charles Njagwa. These are not, they're not technocrats here, and I would actually rightfully support you on that one. What would you think will be the next step for the president? As I read here, the court deliberated that, the first 23 CISs, they were constitutional to appoint, but public participation was not followed, they did not follow through with public participation. As for the rest of the 27 posts, they said that's just outright unconstitutional. What would be the next direction?
The problem with Kenya, public participation has become like PE. It is never graded. So we have it is provided for by the constitution, but we find that it is never followed. Even for the finance bill, we saw it coming, rushing very fast, being finished. Even the budget was read. People were coming out of parliament, and the CS for
it was such
Treasury.
A rushed process.
They are still speaking on the budget, and people are coming out of the. Yet the speaker is supposed to take over his house when people are leaving.
And create order.
So I think a lot of things are not going well. There is either the law is not being followed, and we can see with the unconstitutional, or the independence of the arms of government. They have not realized that they're independent. But because when you can see like the speaker for the National Assembly, that is a person who was on the side of the government. So the government is 3 already, or let's say 2, because when the executive says something, it will automatically pass in parliament. So we need people in parliament who are independent, self-minded, and who thinks for the common citizens.
Kenyans here are caught in between 2 institutions. I will say 3, because at this point we can't even count our members of parliament to be a voice of reason or a voice for the common Mwananchi. So now we are caught between the executive, who have the legislature on their side, and we have the judiciary on the other side. During President Uhuru Kenyatta's time, they said the judiciary is rogue, right? And now we see, President William Ruto, his administration in general, also saying that the judiciary is rogue. Sentiments here by his own, Senate Majority Leader, who's saying that the judiciary was allocated a certain amount, which I think should be 48 billion for the financial year coming into 2023, and somehow they feel like they should be, ticking the boxes that the executive needs ticked if it comes to appointing of CISs, or if it comes to, passing of some policies, or even the Finance Act as is. You're a Kenyan caught in between 2 institutions. Who do we turn to? One says the judiciary is rogue, and, they have evidence, they feel is evidence to point out the judiciary is rogue, and on the other end we have unconstitutional office holders using hundreds of thousands of Kenyan taxpayers' money, and a president who, I dare say, didn't even support the constitution to begin with. So would we be surprised that there's no constitutionalism in his government?
There's no constitutionalism in the government, but what I can say is that, as I said, we have forgotten to be independent. We have 3 presidents. The executive is just a connector for the arms of government, because he just swears in the judges, appoints them. But you see, the parliament is the one that has the biggest role to play, and that's why it's the majority. So when we see our MPs, they are thinking in a crowd. They don't want to think singly. You see, that's why you say everyone knows that the bill, like the finance bill, it's not doing for the Kenyans. Like Babu Wino had a very good idea. Why can't you come up with electric trains? Someone can sleep in Naivasha and work in Nairobi. So you don't have to just build in Nairobi. You can also build in Naivasha. We didn't take. That's why we are saying public participation was not granted its opportunity, because we want to play with what the leaders think. And I think this is actually a trickle-down economy, not a bottom-up, because the bottom is the public participation. You have to involve every person in the society before you make laws. But we see already things are done, like what the 1.5% house levy came to parliament when already they have already settled for the 3%. Now to to sugarcoat the citizens. They say let us drop it to 1.5. But this 1.5 is exactly the same percent that Uhuru Kenyatta had proposed in his government. So I am calling upon the judiciary to play its part.
Okay.
I think the president and the government now, they are playing ahead of us because they know if I appoint these 50 cases, the only thing you can do, it is go to court, to the High Court. When the case drops at the High Court, we appeal. When we appeal, we go to the Supreme, automatically there they will come with money and everything, and the case is done.
Right.
50 are in office.
We saw that in the High Court, the government was looking to forward to a stay order, giving out statements that maybe these CSs, not maybe, they're saying that actually these 50 CSs have not yet assumed office, something that you cannot prove because they're using taxpayers' money. Yeah. This was declared unconstitutional, just waiting for the hearing, which was done yesterday. But, we can say, they might say they haven't spent any taxpayers' money, but we've seen them in their entourages. But there's no way really to prove that, they have spent taxpayers' money as such.
What about the swearing in of them? It was already a ceremony. Right. So already the taxpayers' money was used in State House to swear them in. So these people in office, they already, even if you look at their Twitter, they are celebrating their win. They are telling, thank you, President, for appointing me. These people already in office. And
have actually been also allocated
a budget on them.
Budget, and they've also been given mandates.
Yes.
We've seen the cases of CS, unconstitutional CAS Omanga, who's been offered to take a look at what is happening with the bandit situation over in the Rift Valley. So they are doing unconstitutional duties, holding office within a government that is spending Kenyan taxpayers' money. And Dennis Kimani is saying that our members of parliament should be now where we turn to, as we are caught in between that space, between the judiciary and the executive. Members of parliament should rise up and ensure that they are a voice of reason. But in the meantime, we have to wait to see whether the appeal will pass through the Court of Appeal and eventually maybe the Supreme Court. What will be your best case scenario and worst case scenario?
At the Court of Appeal?
Yeah.
I think it will drop again, but it will win at the Supreme.
Okay.
Yes.
So you feel the Supreme Court is a weak link?
It is the weak link because it is the final. So everyone will take the opportunity for the final place because you have nowhere to turn to. The case is already done.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it. You can get to read much more of that CS ruling, page 4 of the Business Daily, and it's there on the front line of the Daily Nation. You can get to read much more of it on page 7 of the Daily Nation as well. Moving on real quickly, the Finance Act 2023, also some orders to not implement parts of it, but we've seen petrol prices are up. The Kenyan car buyers have been hit by this 35% import duty in this deal. It's there in the front of the Business Daily. It's more expensive now to buy a car in Kenya
than in Uganda,
than in Rwanda. Coupling in with the rising cost of fuel, I think it's going to be quite expensive. Mobility is going to be expensive in this republic. What do you think is going to be now the direction? The first thought that came to my mind when I saw this, maybe just to narrow down specifically to this issue of import duty on cars and fuel, is this could be that time for us to look at green mobility, and maybe you can chime in on that one, being in that space. Is this a chance for us now to say, okay, pandisheni mafuta, pandisheni imports, wacha tutafute electric cars?
I think that is a very sad story with the fact that Kenya has the coastline where Uganda is a landlocked. So how can Ugandans buy cars at cheaper prices than Kenya? It's a very sad story that no one wants to listen to. But coming my way is that we are going for the green energy. Everyone wants to transit to the green energy. That's why we are seeing a lot of maritime courses and maritime things that are coming up. Youths are being told to go to the maritime because, petrol is becoming expensive every day in Kenya. Every day we work, like 1st July, we are seeing a lot of people were fidgeting because they were news that everything is going to rise. So what I think is that the EPRA should think on how common mwananchi will survive. This is the hustler government.
I don't think they care about the Kenyan the common mwananchi.
But why did they ride on the hustler narrative then? Why did they lie to Kenyans? You know, a lot of people are thinking that this is the government that is going to help them out on these chains of poverty, but it is becoming what will make them go straight to the to Dandora dam sites as waste, because as you right, left, center, we are seeing Kenyan are being pressed by these high taxes from the finance bill.
Carpet of poverty.
Spreading carpet of poverty.
Right.
Perfectly said.
We see here that the Isuzu East Africa head of finance on the Business Daily quoted saying that for the rising dollar as well, they are responding through price adjustment. So there are various other issues, including the Finance Act, the rising cost of the dollar. The CBK the newest governor of the CBK just raised lending rates to the highest they've ever been since 2015 to a double-digit number of 10.5% from 9.5%. So which means it's getting more expensive to even borrow money to go buy a car, which is 14% more to buy in the Republic. And maybe just to highlight some other of those which I felt affect me on a personal level. In another move that is aimed at preserving tax revenues, Kenya has also been granted a 1-year extension to continue charging a 25% duty on mobile phones, which is higher than Uganda, Rwanda, which are at like 10% and that. And this is on top of the 10% excise duty, which was also introduced last year, increasing the cost of mobile phones by more than 35%. This is a government that is championing digitization. They say 5,000 of their services are online. I don't know which services those are really, but you know, it's getting harder to afford the internet. It's getting harder to afford phones. It's getting harder then to afford government services. How will I access government services if it's expensive for me to access the internet and get to those digital services themselves?
Before I chip into that digital fee, on page 13, on the business, we are seeing April notice.
On the Daily Nation, that is.
Daily Nation. April notice call for the public comments on draft energy, Integrated National Energy Plan Regulation 2023. I think Kenyans should follow this, should participate in this draft, because this is what can save us from these high taxes. Because with this 5-year integrated plan, it is how money will be collected for the next 5 years. So public participation should be very
But clearly, Deno, we have seen, as with the finance bill, 91% of Kenyans said, no, we don't want this finance bill. And still, they went ahead to pass it. And hurriedly, I think among the fastest bill that the President of the Republic has ever signed. We also saw the same thing with the CSS. Kenyans do not want any CSS. If possible, Kenyans do not want most of the CSS. Who are already there in office, including the unconstitutional office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Will there be need for you to call guys to participate in this draft?
Then what was the need for the public participation to be in the constitution? If people cannot, their voices cannot be heard, their views cannot be put in place, there's no need for public participation. And you see, for the finance bill, a lot of people are concerned with the digital content creators with the money, mobile, you know, like now a lot of Kenyans, I was seeing a data that was saying Kenyans are the ones who are using TikTok the most in the world, and TikTok is not a Kenyan company, it is a US company, but Kenyans have already, because it's
actually a Chinese company.
Yes. Kenyans already using their mobile phone very well. So taxing most of those people are youths. So digital tax was the worst thing that will ever happen to the youths in this era, because
including
a lot of us.
Right.
I think
so. I'm actually picking it up from there. There's digital tax. So if you're a content creator, you want to buy a phone, you want to buy internet, and you have to get online, which means you're paying taxes from the moment your journey is beginning as a digital content creator. The phone is expensive for you to get. The internet is expensive for you to get. Transaction costs are there between M-Pesa to buy data. And then finally, when you get that 2,000 bob, people like Ojwang Mariam would relate heavily on this one from KUTV. If you get that 2,000, the government is knocking at your door. We also want some of that. Are we really encouraging the youth to innovate or pursue the paths that are alternative? The government has been consistently drumming down on us.
I think the youths also forgot themselves, because I was out there a lot of times telling the youths, remember yourself, these parents are the 50 to 60 people have already lived more than half of their time in Kenya. So these us youths are the ones who have the journey to live in Kenya. But they were brainwashed with very little things, like being told we'll create jobs from kazi mtaani. Now it's no longer kazi mtaani, it is housing and mujengo. I think it was all confused. But what I can say is that there's always time for us to come back to our senses. 2027 is coming, and the only people who can, as much as you're saying the parliament is going to save us, but the only person who can save us is the voter, because we are the one who put these people on there. They just go there, eat money. Like there was a joke when the finance bill was in parliament. They were saying that now the parliament toilets are turned into ATMs, because
that's where transactions are happening.
Yes, actually, you followed that thing. A lot of police were around the parliament. Why? Because a lot of transactions.
What does it say for a republic where the reading of the budget and the passing of a finance bill is a heavily guarded moment that requires police presence, blocking off of roads? Isn't that rogue?
It was unconstitutional, because you cannot pass the finance bill in the morning and read the budget in the afternoon.
With members of parliament walking out as well.
Yes, and members are coming out.
Experts are worried of the policies that President William Ruto, and they're calling them flawed policies, a double tightening of the economy. So on one end, as I had mentioned there with the introduction of a story that is there in the famous comedian Bill Cosby's 2009 episode, where a father is giving out $1,200 to the kid, and they're teaching them how tax works. So first of all, I give you this money, but give me a transaction cost, right? Also tell me how much money you have, but there's a fee for telling me how much money you have. And then, it reduces continuously until there's nothing left, which means if the government on one hand is tightening its budgeting policies, on the other hand, the economy will shrink effectively. And if you look at this 2023-2024 budget, the government has prioritized on its own operational spending. The funny thing is that the common mwananchi, who's the hustler, ironically, he's engaged in agriculture. And this is where the majority of the population, the hustlers, they are at the bottom of this pyramid, and where Kenya's key exports are agriculture. However, I have here a graph with me on page 12 of the Business Daily, and it shows a linear decline in budgetary allocation to agriculture. And this is compared to previous years. This is being overshadowed by the expenditure in the cabinet and in the executive in general. Majority of the 2023-2024 budget is in the executive. Is the president grossly misadvised, Dennis Kimani? Do you think the problem could be, as we used to say with President Uhuru Kenyatta, wale wako karibu na president ndio wako na shida?
That is true, because we cannot put all the blame on the president. He's working with some people. But what I can say is that he should rethink on things that he's been told, because he's the president, and he was put there on things, people knowing that he promised us to revive the economy. But what we are seeing is that the economy is doing bad each and every day. For example, you can say on the climate matter, you can see he has gotten a lot of funds. These are grants. These are non-refundable monies. They are grants. But what is happening? We are still seeing a lot of people suffering because of dried up rivers. But for me, I can think for disaster preparedness, we need a good mitigation. For example, me, I can give a very good advice, or even my comments. For mitigations, I was calling for, in this budget, they could have put like construction of 300 to 500 dams. What is the cost of 500 dams? Why? Because we are coming from a rainy season to a dry season. That is respectively. Nothing will ever change that. Respectively. In this gazette, we can say business page 18. We are saying the government is going to give out free land to people so that they can start agriculture. But for sure, what I can say is that people have land in Kenya. What they don't have, it is the climate justice. Because if we have dams, people will have to irrigate during the dry season, and still food security will be high. So there's no need of the government coming with a lot of cushioning of
policies as well,
and policies, forgetting that disaster preparedness is what is aching us. Because, like, let me give you an instance. Person who is in Budalangi is well known for flooding. These people, they anticipate already floods will come. What is the easiest way for the government to help them?
To create dams?
To create dams, to resettle them in higher places earlier. But
that's not happening.
That is not happening. And the same case, I want to bring to the attention of Kenyans that in Parliament, that we are very much fighting as environmentalists. We are fighting for the EIK, Environment Institute of Kenya. This is the body that will be qualifying or expertising the people who are in environmental matters. You know, Richard, you cannot just wake up in the morning and be a lawyer. You cannot be a lawyer, but people can wake up from anywhere and become an environmentalist.
Right, and it's actually something that was said earlier on, by the conversation we're having here with the millennial, the co-founders of the millennial environmentalists. They're also saying that they offer training. If you wake up and you want to go into matters of conservation, environmental conservation and sustainability, you need to go to them for a bit of training as well.
I think that is okay, because they are giving leadership and training. But you know, EAK is the body that works with NEMA. NEMA is the one that gives you as Richard, you are an expert in environment. So even if you go to which school, because if those people are going to start that, they will have a school. After you go to a school, before you qualify with NEMA, you have to go to EIK, Environment Institute of Kenya. And that's why that institute is in Parliament. We are waiting for the willingness of the Parliament to pass it, become a law, so that I don't think, and I am against that, no one should wake up in the morning and become an environmentalist.
All right. Read to us something on the back of the Daily Nation so that we get to see, is the president acting on a constitutional level or is he not? What is the story there?
Remuneration. Public sector wage bill hits new record as civil service pay rises.
Right. Over the weekend, the president, from last week actually, the president promised civil servants to get a pay rise. That is as of Saturday, the 1st of July, 2023. However, he said hands off. President, Prime CS and CSS, they don't want any salary raise. But the SRC, that is the Salaries Remuneration Commission, said they'll go ahead and bump them up on their next set of pay slips. Was this a PR stunt, you think, or what was your reaction to this story?
That is a PR, because already we know even MCAs after the finance bill, they were on a strike that they want them to their salary to increase. So they cannot tell us that they don't want a pay rise. If they don't want a pay rise, then they get a pay cut. Yeah, you cannot be sitting somewhere and saying we don't want, but when you go back behind the bars, not behind the bars, but behind the scenes at Parliament, you're even boycotting to go for sittings because you don't have a fuel allowance, you don't have a loan, a car loan. So these are the things. MCAs are wanting 2.5 million for car
salary raise, right?
For car loans, for car loans. You see, car grants, 2.5. And at mark you, the county governments are going to stall a bit, because even as we talk now, they are still they have received a quarter of the money that they deserve. So how much is this public service going to be paid? As the MPs, their salary is going up, but the common police officers now are not paid. KDF are not paid. Health are not paid. So I think the political field is the only one that is benefiting in Kenya.
They're focusing on the wrong. They're focusing on the wrong salaries, and I think that should be a case. In Mombasa County, the governor reduces taxes which are payable to the county in his first finance bill, and the county surpassed its revenue targets for the year. So Mombasa reduced their taxes, and they got higher revenues. Maybe something for the national government as well to pick up from. So that is where we can get to wrap that up. But I think we've spoken so much on the negative side. Maybe to close it up with one positive thing that has happened, and this is on debt. In November of 2022, I think we were here with you, Deno, as well, discussing what the Central Bank of Kenya did. They rolled out a debt relief which discounted 50% of consumers' non-performing loan debts. Yes. And these were the ones which were overdue as of the end of October 2022. The Business Daily on the front of the page, and also continued in the market section, says that 1.8 million of these digital loan defaulters took advantage of this 6-month credit repair by CBK and reset their history. So if a common mwananchi, 1.8 million of them, can find a way around their debt situation, I think the country can also learn a few things from Mombasa County and also from 1.8 million. I think this should be Fuliza plus any others in Tala and Mshwari.
Now we have the hustler.
Yeah.
You know, you're saving.
We have the hustler fund.
Yes, we have.
Ama unasema hawa wali move to hustler fund.
Watu wameenda hustler fund. But before we finish, on news focus, page 17, Mombasa gears up for Kiswahili Day celebration with cultural activities. I wanted to put something on this.
Okay.
It was just yesterday or the other week that we saw the East African legislature saying that you cannot use Kiswahili in their parliament. It was so unfortunate that Africans are starting to forget and coming up with a lot of English, like you're saying. I think the next Biashara Tuesday it should be a pure Kiswahili.
Tunaweza jaribu mzee. Si kubaya sana. Kiswahili pia ni mdomo changu.
Yes.
Mdomo wangu. We'll do some research and then get prepared for that. Yes. Sure. So
because we should tunafaa tujivunie Kiswahili, si kusema ati, you know, like Chinese where they are in front of the others, or
they're leading
competing
the world
with the USA.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can never hear what they're saying. But as when you're talking, the president is talking, he's addressing the whole world.
Yeah.
Instead of addressing the Kenyans.
Sasa juu umesema hivyo, ebu tusomee hii quote na uiseme kwa Kiswahili.
Gani?
Hiyo iko hapo kando.
The changes we dread most may contain our salvation. Mabadiliko tunayotaka yako kwa
nini?
Salvation na Kiswahili ni wokovu.
Yeah. So what does this say? Sorry, let's get it again.
The changes we dread most may contain our salvation.
All right. Yeah. Ile vitu tunaogopa sana, labda ndio inaweza kuwa inatusaidia. Hiyo ndio naweza sema inaweza tuokoa. Sorry. Damn. All right. Thank you very much for tuning into this section of Biashara Tuesday, the newspaper review coming to you. Those are the headlines we could take a look at with Deno, and I think I wanted to wrap it up with anything that maybe we'll have left out, Deno. Any initiative that you want to bring to light, and then we can get to see what Kenyans have been saying here so far.
Before I finish, I will touch on the KQ and the expressway. I think we have forgotten that.
All right.
The loans.
All right. Kenya's debt situation.
Debt situation.
Do we really have debt?
I don't think so, because as far as I know, our economists can tell us, you are given a loan on what you have saved. So if you save 10,000, you are guaranteed 10,000 because already you can pay. I think Kenya don't have any debt, because we already have something we can give.
Right.
But for the expressway, I think there is double charges, because we saw there was a time that immediately the president was chosen, they never paid the loan. So it incurred some charges, or because of some interest because of no pay. The same way happened with the KQ. I think these are deliberate so that money can be gotten. But with that said, just to finish up is that I was once seeing, but now I'm blind. Who is that?
I was once seeing, but now I'm blind.
Yeah.
Is that a Kenyan?
Absolutely.
That is every single Kenyan out there. Thank you very much, Dedo, for your remarks. Kimani Wachira, the Kenya Kwanza government, popularly known as the tax Kwanza, has misplaced priority. Should we build houses or invest in the making of our industry? Housing will only offer temporary employment, but industry offers permanent employment. That is the President Emeritus of the TVET Students Association. Thank you for watching the show, Kimani Wachira, and say hi to the people of the TVET Students Association. Thank you for tuning into this show. This has been Biashara Tuesday with me, Richard Okenya. Deno has something to say?
We still have the talks in Kenyatta University.
All right.
All are welcome.
All right, all are welcome for that conversation on climate justice happening at Kenyatta University. Continue tuning into the rest of KUTV's broadcasts. KUTV Primetime News, Mizizi Habari later. Next week on Monday, Karen Blessing Alafu. I am back here with business on Biashara Tuesday. Interact with me on socials at Richard_Kenya. I will see you around.